So, having lied to Jesse about his wife, Jack Wilson encouraged her to write to his sister Mary. Wilson offered to mail the letter, and in due course brought Jesse this reply. So, just in case, I know I've been a little sketchy, what would really help ease your mind? Maybe you should talk to my sister. Can you write a letter? I'll deliver it for you. What do you think he's probably going to do with that letter? Sorry? Well, he might actually craft a response. So he brings a reply to this letter. So Jesse writes a letter. He's the one who, quote unquote, mails it, and then he gets a reply later, and this is what this is. So Royal Infirmary, just gonna actually mark this. So the Royal Infirmary in Glasgow, that's in Scotland, March 4th, 1918. My dear sister Jessie, I just had your letter read to me by Dr. Mr. Haxwell, and he has a shorthand clerk taking this down. Oh, Jessie, I am dying, and the doctors say the end will be here in just about 1 hour. So she gets a reply, and it's immediately, I'm dying. I'll be dead by the time you get this letter. If only I could have lived until I seen you and John, I would have died content. I am not afraid to die, and since I know that John is going to have you to look after him, it makes it easier. Jessie, I feel as though I had known you a long time, and I'm going to tell you something about John if my strength only holds out. He was a good boy and was my mother's favorite child, and she died with her head on his arm. After that, he tried to follow her footsteps and was good to the poor people. He never drank or smoked. He joined the Highlanders and made a splendid-looking soldier. I used to be proud to walk down the street with him as people would turn around and look at him. He had lots of money and made friends with all the boys in his regiment. He got the gold medal 2 years in succession for being the smartest soldier in the brigade. Ask him to give you a look at his medals if he has not already done so. They're lovely. Then the change came, Jesse, and my heart was sore for him. One Glasgow holiday, he hired a pleasure steamer and took all the boys in his company on a pleasure trip to Rothsay. He also took all the girls from a dressmaking shop on the trip, and that was where he met the woman who ruined him. A few years later, after he told me he was getting married, he had hardly known the girl a month, and I did not like her, but I could not get him to stop the marriage. But I got him to put it off for about 9 months. That was until New Year's Day. I was sure she was only after his money. She went home then, and I think John only seen her twice during the 9 months. He spoke to me once about it, and he said that he asked her to break off the engagement, but she would not do it and threatened him with an action in the court for breach of promise if she was left. John was afraid of the disgrace and went through with the marriage. She made great preparations at his expense. It must have cost him several $1,000s. They were married on New Year's Day and went to London the same day. They were only gone 4 days, and he returned very unhappy looking. And about 2 months after that, I knew John was not sleeping in the house, but he tried to hide from everyone that he was not getting along with her and that he was leading a miserable life. About 10 months after that, a boy was born, and I told John that he would get along better after that as the boy would draw them together. But if only you had seen his face when he said that they get along worse as he was not his boy. He said they had never had any husband and wife connection, and they had never slept in the same room since they were married. Oh, Jesse, it was awful to see him suffering when people were congratulating him on getting a son. John had always been a great boy for dances, but after that, he stopped going to them altogether and mixed up with no one. One night, about 5 or 6 weeks later, John went home for some papers. Around 10 p.m., he found a man in bed with her. He picked him up and took him out in the street where everyone could see, and John thrashed him until I thought he was going to kill him. Next morning, John left for Holland. Dear Jesse, John tried every way to get along with her, but it was no use. She was bad, out and out. He has had a hard life, Jesse, but you are his first love, and I know he will make you happy. He must love you very dear, or he would not give up all his property for you. He is upright and honorable, and you can trust your life to him. Now, Jesse, I'm getting weak, and I want to write to John yet. I can die happier knowing he is in your care. It is lonesome to die here alone, but I am not afraid, as I have always tried to be a good girl, and with my dying breath, I pray to the Lord that John and you will be happy. Try to cheer him up, Jesse, as when he hears of my death, he will feel it bad. Goodbye, Sister Jessie, and may the blessing of a dying girl rest on you always. Your dying sister, Mary. So, do we think this letter was truthful? No, there's so many lies in this letter. And so remember those sticky notes? I recommend you actually put a sticky note on this page here. You are going to come back to this letter. One thing we're going to eventually look at is he likes to lie. He lies a lot when it suits him, right? This is a quote directly from the book. He's going to be lying a lot in letters. This is the first letter we see an account of this. Well, it's not the first letter we see an account of this, but this is the first one to Jesse. Quite convenient, right? Jesse wants to talk to the sister. So Jack is so delightful. He's willing to mail the letter for her. And the response is, I'm going to die right away. But here's all this backstory you need to know about his life. Oh, and it's all lies. So he almost certainly wrote this reply, right? He never sent the actual letter. He just faked the reply. So the following letter accompanied the previous one. This is still in the Royal Infirmary in Glasgow. This is like the next day. Dear Jesse, haven't heard that Mary was dying here. I hurried to see her. She was able to speak for about 2 hours before the end came. I read your letter to her and she had me get a shorthand writer to take down the enclosed reply. Miss Jessie, it was the most pathetic deathbed I ever was at in all my experience. I married the father and mother and christened all the children, and now they're all dead but John. Mary was a good girl and she was not afraid to die. The end came very peacefully, and the last words she ever said were father and mother, Isabel, her twin sister, Sandy, and I am coming. Goodbye, Jesse and John. Then a smile came over her face as she passed away. I could not keep the tears away, and I noticed the 2 doctors and 2 nurses were crying also. I buried her beside her father and mother, where John has a monument worthy of them. His father and mother were respected by everyone. His mother was always working among the poor people and helping them along with money and food. John was her favorite boy, but he has led a very unhappy life since she died. I do not usually approve of divorce, but in this case, I advised John to get one long ago. It is a very sad story. And Mary did not have time to tell you half of what the poor boy suffered. I am an old man of 76 years of age, and I've never had a case where a boy suffered more than he had done. In conclusion, I ask you to be worthy of him and try and make balance in his life happy. I can trust him to be good and true to you, and I can only hope I will live long enough to meet you both. Meanwhile, accept my prayers for your future happiness, and may the blessing of the Almighty God be with you now and forever. Your sincere friend, F. H. Haxwell. I'm unable to write now and have to get a typist. So please excuse this. So again, I'll never be able to message you again. I can't write anymore. And so when Jesse reads this letters, so how many siblings does John have again? He has 3. He has his older brother Alex, and he has his 2 sisters who are twins. So we have Isabel and we have Mary. Now, what does he say happens in this letter here, specifically here in this highlighted part? They're all dead, right? They're all dead. There's no mention of Alex. No mention of Alex at all. Now, to be fair, Jack hates Alex. We already established that one. But so now his 2 sisters are dead. So who left in Scotland now knows about him, really? Just Polly, really. Yeah. So these letters, the letters were written both by John Wilson. So he lied. He faked the letters and lied because he's trying to get Jesse off his trail right now, right? Yeah, anyone he wanted to talk to who knows about my real situation, yep, they all died. They're not actually dead. Nope, this is all lies. Nope, these are all lies crafted by Jack Wilson. So we're going to be encountering a lot of lies from this point forward. It's going to be important we keep track of them. I recommend the second we see a lie, sticky note it. It will come in handy. So these letters were written by John Wilson himself. Jessie apparently found nothing odd about the letters. She carefully saved them in a large brown envelope, along with many letters from Jack. Letters he had written while he was away on police business and when she had gone away herself in February of 1917. At that time, she may have been trying to break off with him, as Jack wrote a strange letter, telling her he would pick her up and register as an alien so she couldn't leave Blaine Lake. That letter was signed Lindsay, Wilson's second name. Jack Wilson was liked by many in Blaine Lake, and that spring of 1918, they saw a man very much down on his luck. As he gained strength day by day, the town of Blaine Lake offered him the job of notary public and justice of the peace. It would pay him a little and not tax his strength too much. He had discharged his duties as a Mountie admirably, and in spite of the rumors about his marital status, the townspeople respected that. He kept his own counsel and could be trusted with people's private affairs. He was also hired to sell cars from the Larson brothers auto dealers, and things began to look brighter. He would bide his time until he could get back into the Mounties. Meanwhile, in Kilkensaw, a worried Elizabeth helped her sister pack. Usually when people went traveling, it was for a holiday at the seaside, to take a pleasure boat on the River Clyde, or to spend a few days in Glasgow to shop and go to the music hall. Happy occasions. It was difficult for Elizabeth to know what kind of face to put on this journey of Polly's. It was anything but a holiday, more like a quest, if one had to put a name to it. To pretend they were happy about her going would have been a lie, and yet Polly needed their blessing. The faint hope that word from Jack would change her course remained just that. January had dragged on, wet and gloomy. February, not much better, and Polly quietly began to get ready. She sewed late into the night after her other work was done. A new tweed suit, a spring dress, an extra skirt. Her mother came one day with a dainty lace-trimmed camisole and nightgown, and Polly was grateful for the implication in this generous gesture. She could almost believe that she was going to a reunion with a husband who loved her. March came and went, and still no word. And Polly asked Jim to book a ticket for an early April sailing. Money was raised among the family so she could sail on the Martania, a luxury liner that wasn't likely to be mistaken for a troop ship by German submarines. Other relatives and her friends gave Polly gifts of money for her journey. Polly packed her suitcase, a light, large, brown patent leather case with leather and brass fittings, a gift from Elizabeth and Archie. And of course, a trunk, since there was no way of knowing how long she'd be away. Warm sweaters for the deck of a ship in April and prairie spring. Extra skirts and blouses, stockings, underthings, her Bible, the one they presented to her when she was a Slamanan Sunday school scholar. And most importantly, a photograph of her and the children, taken about a year after Jack left, all of them looking a wee bit lost and solemn. She needed their faces to look at till she could hold them again. And so, in her new suit with the pin John brought her on their Dublin honeymoon fastened to the lapel, Polly Wilson bade goodbye to her family and her children and set off for Canada. So chapter 12, the quest. So the Martania, Cunard's golden ship, would become an Atlantic legend. Indeed, by the time Polly walked aboard, the liner was already famous. In Son of the Machines by Rudyard Kipling, she was described as a monstrous 9-decked city, and standing alongside her, the metaphor seemed apt. Kipling even managed, well tried, to wax lyrical about her 30,000 horses and some screws, which tells a lot about how the Martania affected people. She was a sister ship to the ill-fated Lusitania. Both ships were launched in 1907, and in the last decade before the war, when immigration accounted for a huge volume of business for steamship companies. The North Atlantic is no place to be in April, said the man who crossed in 1912. Even on the huge ships, many got seasick. And in 1918, there were German submarines to think about on dark nights. Again, so like context there is like there were lots of ships that were sunk by German subs. This is still in World War I. It is a dangerous trek to go across here. And the Lusitania is like a Titanic, almost like a Titanic-sized ship that got sunk. 1,200 people died. The Germans did that, yeah. Now, it wasn't, I don't think it was meant to be on, I need to recall, I don't think it was done on purpose, like they mistook it for a military vessel. Yeah, like there's an unwritten agreement that like, you know, we're not going to purposely try and kill civilians if we can. But yeah. So the North Atlantic is no place to be in April, said the man who crossed in 1912. Even on huge ships, many got seasick, and in 1918, there were German submarines to think about on dark nights. Polly had a second cabin ticket, which supplied a modest but attractively furnished cabin with a bunk rather than the brass bed provided in first class. She shared a communal bathroom and lavatories down the passageway. Second cabin passengers had their own decks, sheltered and open, their own dining saloons and smoking rooms, their own libraries, gymnasia, purser's office, and writing rooms. Polly spent many hours writing letters to be mailed in Halifax. So the second she arrives in Canada, Halifax, Nova Scotia, East Coast. She's going to mail those letters. She had lots of practice in epistolary art in the years since Jack left. She could not get over the size of the ship. The Martinia's 4 smokestacks were wide enough for 2 cars to drive through, abreast with plenty of room to spare, and were 65 feet high, which is the height of a prairie grain elevator. The ship's statistics were printed on folders that Polly sent home to Jim, Archie, and the joiner. They would be interested to know that steel plates more than an inch thick formed the skin or shell plating of the ship. Some were 50 feet long and weighed 5 tons. It had taken 4 million rivets to assemble the hull and superstructure. Isn't that riveting, she wrote to Jim. And somehow, being away from home and doing something about her situation had lightened her heart. Polly's traveling companions included many young women going to Canada to join their husbands they'd met and married during the war. They were just girls, really, most of them younger than Polly by at least 10 years. Their journey would take them to lonely sod shacks in the prairies, one-room cabins in northern bush country, and towns and cities along the route. Whenever she was asked, Polly said she was going to meet her husband, a mounted policeman, and that this is what was written on the passenger list as her reason for traveling. Polly was seasick and would have agreed with Dr. Johnson, who said that going to sea was like going to prison with a chance of being drowned. Finally, the ship was escorted into Halifax Harbor, where the worst disaster in Canadian history had occurred just 4 months earlier. A French munition ship carrying almost 2,000 pounds of explosives collided with a Belgian relief ship in the Narrows. The explosion killed 18,000 people and seriously injured 4 more. Yeah, if you're ever bored, give that a Wikipedia. What she could see of the city looked like a war zone. The Martania docked at Halifax Harbor at 11:28 a.m., April 12, 1918. The medical examination was short. The examiners were more interested in showing signs of the dreaded eye disease, trachoma. From there, Polly passed through customs onto the CPR train to take her west. So this is at the start of 1918. No worry about the Spanish flu yet. From the train, she looked out at the same landscape John had 6 years earlier. She talked with other women from the boat and watched as they pressed their faces to the window, trembling with anticipation of the first sight of a beloved face. She saw them greeted at small and large platforms, engulfed in passionate embraces. She waved at them from the windows as the train moved on and on and on. No wonder people could come here and never be heard from again. It was just too big. And again, like, it's like people don't really understand like the context of like how big freaking Canada is compared to like a lot of European nations. Like so that's that point being driven home. We're the second biggest country. Yeah, like Saskatchewan's bigger than most countries in Europe. Not most, but many countries in Europe. Mm-hmm. So as they drew closer to Regina, Polly gathered her things together. She would stop there and make inquiries. Will we get to see that handsome Mountie of yours? Asked an Irish woman who had seen the pictures Polly carried. Oh, I'm afraid not. He doesn't know when to expect me. Ah, well, soon you'll be seeing him. That's the main thing. But Polly thought, wouldn't it be grand to see him standing there? And finally, on April 18th, Regina. Clusters of buildings on a flat, muddy plain with patches of dirty snow on their lee side. In the bright sunset, there was a raw newness about many of them. Other jerry-built places already showed signs of wear she had noticed all along the train route. She had lived all her life in a place where houses were built to withstand the centuries, but the well-developed city center surpassed her with all its tall, dark buildings, handsome churches, and lovely big houses. Trainmen blew whistles and signaled importantly as the train, with screeching brakes and clouds of steam, slowed to a stop. The station platform teemed with people, some waving joyfully at familiar faces, others clutching tickets and valises. Large baggage carts rumbled throughout the crowd. There was such energy in this country, such an air of excitement. Her hair leapt at the sight of a uniformed Mountie on the platform. Of course, it wasn't Jack, but it suddenly made him seem much closer. Polly's arms felt strangely weak, and they shook as she took down her suitcase. She said goodbyes to the woman going further west and finally stepped off the train, grateful for the conductor's firm hand on her arm. She stood on the platform for a few minutes, trying to calm herself, then picked up her valise and walked towards the station. When she found a telephone, her heart pounded and she had to force herself to crank the handle before she lost her nerve. Her voice shook as she asked the operator for the Mounted Police headquarters. Royal Northwest Mounted Police, Constable Brickton speaking. Hello, I'm trying to locate Corporal John Wilson. I'm sorry, I don't know Corporal Wilson's whereabouts. Please hold on, ma'am, and I'll try and find out for you. Polly gripped, waiting the phone as if her life depended on it, and it would hold her up if the news was bad. And then the constable was back. We think if you phone the Prince Albert detachment, they might be able to tell you his whereabouts. He gave her the number and wished her well. With a deep breath, she cranked the phone again. So all of a sudden, his first dead wife, now evil, soul-sucking woman wife, who cheated on him and had a bastard and tried to pretend he was the father, is now in Canada. Oh, well, that's just what that's what John's saying. So we are going to start seeing these lies catching up to him. Yeah, so on her official document, when she comes overseas, this is a real document, like it exists. I'm going to find my husband. I'm going overseas to do my Mountie husband. I don't know how much of these letters are fake versus how much of these like the earlier letters are real. That's when I'm not too sure. If I could probably do some more research on that, but I'm going to guess most of those letters were real. Like a lot of them were saved. So I think we're actually reading word for word what actually John Wilson had written. So, chapter 13, is it really you? Earlier in 1918, the Royal Northwest Mounted Police called for 500 volunteers for an overseas cavalry unit. And on April 18th, Jack Wilson drove to Prince Albert to volunteer. Earlier in the war, Commissioner A. Bowen Perry had offered a squadron, but Prime Minister Robert Borden said no. The mounted police were needed in Western Canada. With the creation of provincial policing in 1917, Borden gave an okay for the Royal Northwest Mounted Police Cavalry Squadron. To Wilson, the call for volunteers represented an opportunity to serve his country and to straighten out his personal life. While overseas, he could decide what to do about Jesse, but it was not to be. The call for 500 men was answered by more than 700. So again, we're 4 years. This is 4 years into a war. We know like men are dying left, right, and center. The fatality rate is colossally high, and they can still get more people than what they need. The call for 500 men was answered by more than 700, so the force was not constrained to choose any but the most fit, the most eligible, and a bout with TB was not the best preparation for cavalry service. So once again, the man gets denied. The third time he has tried to sign up, and the third time he gets denied. I'm sorry, Jack, we have far more men than we need. Superintendent Walton Rutledge told him, if you're worried about my health, I'm feeling very well now, and the doctor's given me a clean bill of health. That's good news. Yes, sir. When do you think I'll get back on general duty? Give it a few more months. You want to make sure you're 100% before you reapply. The phone on the superintendent's desk rang. Royal Northwest Mounted Police, Superintendent Rutledge speaking. Wilson stood out the window, waiting for a conversation to end. Yes, just a moment. He's right here. Who do we think is on the phone? Ollie. Rutledge handed the phone to a surprised Wilson. Hello, John Wilson speaking. Jack, oh Jack, is it really you? So he goes by two names, right? He goes by Jack and John. This is largely where that's from. John Wilson, the nice Mountie who is engaged with Jesse. Jack Wilson, the man who has a Scottish wife. So he goes by both names, but we're starting to see this alter ego kind of show up here. Wilson's knees almost buckled at the familiar voice in his ear. Polly, is that you? Where are you? He's having this conversation in front of his fellow workers at the RCMP or Northwest Mounted Police. You'll never believe it, Jack. I'm in Regina. Your officer here put me on to Prince Albert. Are you all right? I've been so worried. Yes, no, well, oh Lord, what a surprise. He felt the blood leave his face and everything outside the window looked strangely far away. He gripped the edge of Rutledge's desk for support. The superintendent looked at him with concern. I've been very sick with TB. I almost died. That's why I haven't written. Oh, again, very sick with TB as he just signed up to try and go to the war and just asked, when can I get back to work? Oh, I knew something was wrong. That's what I told them at home. I'm getting better now. I can't believe this. I was just in the office trying to get back overseas. You haven't joined up, Polly said, her voice fearful. No, they have more than what they need for now. Where are you phoning from? I'm still at the station. Oh, Jack, should I catch the next train to Prince Albert? No, don't do that. Take the train to Saskatoon tomorrow, and I'll meet you there mid-afternoon sometime. I will. Where should I meet you? Just stay at the station. Then we'll decide what to do. I'll be there. I can't believe I'm really talking to you. I doubt I'll sleep a wink tonight. It will be good to see you too. He tried to sound pleased. What else could he do? So his wife's here. His wife has made contact, and they now have plans to meet up. so Jack or John Wilson. So he's so does he sound, he doesn't sound pleased with this, right? He tried to sound pleased. He's not very pleased at this. He's gotten himself in a situation. He has to worm his way out of this somehow. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go to our sheet here. We have just one general question here, but there's going to be a lot of plot. There will be an insane amount of plot. This is probably the most we are ever going to write. Yes, I think this is the most we're ever going to write for this. So leave a lot of space. In fact, I'm going to recommend do your answer up here at the very, very top. But so we want to know, how many years has John been away from Polly? So this happened in April of 1918. So 1918. Yeah, we're not doing the research one. Nope. We're not doing this one. Just this research. You will get time for this. This is not an assignment, but there will be time for this stuff today. So this is when she arrives. Polly arrives in April 1918. They make plans to meet. When did he leave? He left in 1912, specifically in July of 1912. It's been 6 years. So how many years has John been away from Polly? For 6 years. And so, so do you think that like Polly, like, so the question here's asking, is this naive or honorable? Polly left to Canada to see her husband. Do you think this is like naive, or is this like an honorable thing that she's done? I mean, you have to respect it, right? Like a lot of people think that he's dead. A lot of people back home like don't really like him and kind of wishes that like he never comes back. But so like it's probably a little bit of both, right? Like she's really good-hearted in nature, is always thinking the best of people. Like most people have seen the writing on the wall at this point. Like he's left you, but she doesn't want to accept that, right? She wants her kids to have a father. You know, they were in love. They were very clearly in love. We saw lots of evidence of that before he left, and even like shortly after he like arrived in Canada, he still really much was focused on Polly. So this one's entirely up to you. We're not really going to go through response with that. Instead, I'm going to go through our plot summary here. There is a lot here. There is going to be a lot. So starting off, we have the fake letters from Jack's sister. And in this letter, it talked about all sorts of things, right? How he's so loved. He was so rich. He was in the military. He was their best soldier. All of these things. And his wife, oh my God, this wife, just a crazy person, right? Awful person. So it talks about all this stuff. So the letter talked about his military past, his riches, his crazy wife, the bastard son, all of this. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit. Like I said, it will be a lot. I apologize. Sorry? Yeah. So we're just doing the entire plot summary there. So it talks about all this stuff. Again, this bastard son, that means like she cheated on him. And so what eventually ends up happening here is that in order for Jack to escape this crazy woman, Jack leaves for Holland. This is a lie. This is what the letter says happened to Jack. But we know that these letters were written by Jack himself. Both of them. And in it, what ends up happening, the two people, the sister and like that caretaker, that really old man that lived with her, they died. Quote unquote dies. She's alive. She's fine. She's well. It's a fake letter, right? While I'm writing this letter, I have 1 hour left to live. So those are those letters that ends up happening here. Now, he gets a job as justice of the peace and stuff like that. That's less important here. The really big thing that happens in this set of chapters is that we have Polly arrives in Canada in April 12th of 1918. So Polly arrives in Canada, and so Jack tries to sign up for the war overseas. This is the third time. And he does this in the Prince Albert office, right? I'm gonna write NPA. NPA. We can shorthand that. We know what PA is. So Jack tries to sign up for the war overseas in PA, and his goal here is like, this is just going to give me some time to figure out this crap show. Like, he's aware of the fact that, I got some problem solving to do. This is before Polly comes into the picture. So he tries to sign up for the wars overseas, and the phone rings, and lo and behold, Polly calls and talks to Jack. And what's their plan? Let's meet up. Let's meet up in Saskatoon. No. Don't come to PA. Don't come to PA. Don't come to PA. I'll come meet you. That's just be like the third time. Yeah. So that's the third time he's tried to sign up to go overseas. Sorry? That's the third time he got denied. Yeah. I mean, you got to expect it. At least he's trying, right? Like, at least he's trying to go overseas. So whenever he encounters a problem, like, remember, this is giving us some like understanding of his psychology. He encounters a really tough situation. What's he do? He runs. He tries to escape it, tries to figure it out. I'll give you another just a minute there to write that down, and then we'll carry on reading. Oh, they're on the cupboard all the way by the like little kitchenette thing. Okay. Okay. So we are now going to um carry on. We're going to start with chapter 14. Sorry. On page 48. Yeah. So like I think we're only going to read 2 chapters. We'll find out. So a prairie triangle. So Jack Wilson is driving to meet his wife. As Jack drove to meet his wife the next day, his mind was working overtime. After the initial shock of the phone call, all ramifications of the lie he'd been living leapt to his mind, right? Ramifications, the consequences, how this is going to like blow up in his face. If he told Polly he'd fallen in love with another woman and sent her back, the scandal he'd left behind would be pale by comparison. He hated the thought of it. Now, is that a solution though? Like, can he just say, like, he can, but he doesn't want to, right? He cares about his reputation. He hated the thought of it. Polly had told him people were impressed with him being a Mountie. And those Blaine Lake people who whispered about him being married, wouldn't they just love it? He couldn't wait to get out of that place. He hated it now. He wants to get out of Blaine Lake, right? He doesn't want these rumors floating around. He doesn't want to be around them. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst of it was Jesse, who'd been so faithful and true through everything. His TV, the rumors, and who expected to marry him soon. He couldn't bear the thought of her finding out he still had a wife, and worse yet, his wife was here. He'd have to take her somewhere far away from Blaine Lake while he thought out what to do. Just the thought of Jesse finding out made him want to cry. He told her last night he was going to Regina to look for a job that paid enough for them to get married. The trip to Saskatoon was interminable. It was cold driving, and the hints of green here and there as he drove depressed him even more. It wasn't fair. He'd been ill for so long and was just starting to feel hopeful again. It was finally spring, and now this. So like I said, this is primarily going to be a story you write about like the characters with. There is some like hints of that landscape stuff, like this mention of the hints of green here and there. It's spring. We know spring like means like new. That probably references like him and Jesse's marriage, but it's like there's little like hopes there that him and Jesse can be happy, and then boom, we got all this snow and mud and stuff that's covering it up. That's his past lies, is what that is. Again, there's not going to be a lot of this littered throughout. On the station platform, Polly walked back and forth, glancing often at the road where Jack would come. She couldn't sit still for fear of missing the first sight of him. Another train arrived with people stepping off, looking as disoriented as she felt yesterday in Regina. 2 Mounties got off the train, joking with the conductor. She couldn't help it. Every time she saw that uniform, her heart seemed to turn over. She walked around a pile of trunks, suitcases, carpet bags, and boxes tied with sturdy rope. 4 names printed carefully on their tops and sides. She smiled as newcomers were met by families and burst into excited talk she couldn't understand. She liked the sound of their laughter, their fierce embraces. She wore the suit she traveled in, The other skirts were hopelessly creased, but everything else was fresh. She washed her hair in the hotel in Regina last night and had a real bath. And hadn't that felt good after the long trip and spit baths in the tiny train compartment? She'd scarcely slept since she had to be up at 6 to catch the train, but she didn't feel tired. Her hair felt different, full of energy in the dry air. She felt that way herself. And suddenly there he was, not in uniform as she'd imagined, but in a tweed suit that hung from his shoulders, and pale and thin enough to break her heart. And then his arms were around her. Thank God I've got my own at last, Jack said. The wait was finally over. In her excitement at seeing her husband, Polly didn't notice his nervousness or the dismay he tried to conceal. The plan he had formulated, so he has come up with the plan on this drive, on the way to Saskatoon, was to take Polly to Regina and look for work there. That would give him time to think of what to do. It was a long drive to Regina, but he had worked in Saskatoon, knew people there, and knew nothing must get back to Blaine Lake, just 40 miles away, which is about like 65 kilometers, right? It's not that far. And the diversion of driving would cover his nervousness. Back to Regina. Oh, Jack, do we have to go today? So she took a train from Regina to Saskatoon to drive to Regina. I know, Polly, but I figured it out on the way here. I need to find work, and there's nothing here. It was already loading her suitcase and trunk in the back of the car. Oh, well, whatever you think is best, I don't mind, as long as we're together. Yes, Jack said, you give me all the news from home on the drive. And so they set off at Regina, at a 9-hour drive at 20 miles an hour. You know, not the same highways we have here, which already aren't that good, but, you know, so 9-hour drive from Saskatoon to Regina takes 2 hours today. Hour 45 if like to push the speed limit a lot. Polly did most of the talking, telling him all about George and Ella, and the things said now and the things they said now and did, and news of her family and his, their friends and neighbors, and which boys would never come home from war, and how some would never be the same. Poor William Angus, you should have seen him when he got the Victoria Cross. He looked so confused at the commotion. Polly talked and talked and talked, as if everything she'd wanted to tell him for 6 years was right there at the tip of her tongue, just waiting for him to appear. Are you sure we shouldn't go back home? I miss everyone already. I hate to leave the children too long. No, I want to wait and see. If I get back in the force, we can send for them. I'd rather do police work than anything. So what's he telling Polly? Yeah, once I raise enough money, we're going to bring the kids here. Well, she thought he was her husband. It was his decision to make, and she must go along with it. And after making all the decisions for years now, it was a relief. It was chilly driving with some snow still caught in the stubble of last year's crops, and exhilarating too. She marveled at the space, the impossible large sky, more amazing now than from the train. She was interested in everything, the farms and villages they passed through, the sight of coyotes and deer, and once a V of beautiful white geese flying low, their undersides tinged pink from the setting sun. And when the sun set behind them in a spectacular array of fiery reds, golden oranges, with streams of light beaming down between the gold-rimmed clouds, like a picture straight out of the Old Testament, she said she had never seen anything so beautiful. Jack looked tired and strained. Several times on the drive, he reached down to pull a bottle out from under the seat and down a few swallows. Do you remember his letter? He never smoked or drank. We're about to get into the alcoholic phase. So he took a bottle up from under the seat and downed a few swallows. He had always liked his wee damn, but not like that, straight from the bottle, as if he really needed it. Well, he was tired, and maybe he did need it. In Regina, the Wilsons rented a room in a boarding house at 2039 Rose Street, run by Miss Aline Wismer, a motherly soul who took to Polly immediately. Remember this name, Aline Wismer. That is an important character in the story. A motherly soul who took to Polly immediately. The 2-story brick house with a front veranda was almost indistinguishable from the neighbors on either side. Here the couple would stay for 5.5 months. At least Polly would. Jack was often gone for days at a time. Their marital relations resumed immediately. They start having sex. Terrible of him, taking advantage of her like that, some would say, and did say later. But given the mores of the time, it had likely been a very long time since he'd made love to a woman. And also, not to do so would have made Polly suspicious. He needed time, and perhaps he realized what a cruelty it would be to reject her at the end of her long journey. Polly wrote a joyful letter home to tell them she had arrived safely and that all was well. Within days of her arrival, Polly Wilson was pregnant. Child number 3. Wilson applied for a position with the Canadian Military Police Corps, the CMPC, a federal police force that dealt with enforcing the Military Service Act, MSA, or conscription. Basically, we need more guys for the war. We're going to roll a lottery, and Sid, congratulations. You are chosen to go to the war. And if you choose not to do so, the Canadian Military Police Corps will throw you in jail. That's what he applied to do, basically. Because of his experience, he was hired immediately, and he gave up his jobs in Blaine Lake. The flow of letters from Jack Wilson's pen were now directed to Jessie, his darling wee girl in Blaine Lake. He would say later he tried at this time to give up Jessie. His actions say otherwise. Jessie had been his almost constant companion since the past summer, and the powerful bond they'd forged when he was ill was stronger than any sense of moral obligation. When one loves like this, the temptation to say the beloved's name is always there. And John told Polly about Jessie, how good she was to him when he was ill. No doubt he portrayed her as just a friend, the daughter of his good friends, the Pattersons. But his expression as he spoke of her, his need to say her name, was not lost on Polly. Wilson lay awake nights beside his bed, besides his wife, fighting with himself, and losing again and again and again. He should give up Jessie for her sake, but he couldn't bear the thought. Every chance he got, under any pretext, he went to see her, and between times, the love letters continued unabated. So he's dating 2 girls now at a time, basically. He has his wife, and he has his fiancée. And so he knows the right thing to do is to give up Jessie and resume his marriage with Polly. What he wants to do, though, is he wants to be with Jessie. He feels so like he feels that really strong bond because she saved his life and everything. Didn't physically save his life, but gave him a life, right? Gave him children, stuck by him through scandals. Sorry. He didn't get sick when he was there. He got sick as a child, his lungs. So the Department of Justice, Military Service Branch, Dominion Police, Tuesday night, June 18th, 1918, 6:45. My dearest wee girl, this is Jessie. I got your letter yesterday morning, and how sad it made me, I cannot tell you. Jessie, oh dearest, I know it is lonesome for you at Blaine Lake, and how I wish I could take you away now, Jessie, and make you happy. But dearest, I want to be strong again before I take you away. I would not wait a minute if I was only sure it was all clear in my lungs. Dearest, if only you knew how miserable it is for me here alone. I have not chummed up with anyone, and every night when I go to the tent, I wonder if there's any other person in this world, just as few friends I have. So he's sleeping in a tent, apparently, to this letter. Jessie, I would gladly give my life any time if it would help you any. You are all I have in this world to care for, and I love you with all my heart. You have been my kindest friend I have known since Mother died. And although I never bothered much about religion, I often pray now that I get well again and strong and get a chance to repay you for all you have done for me. This is from the bottom of my heart, dearest, and there are tears in my eyes when I am writing this. I am yours to do as you want, Jessie, dearest. And when we are married, it will be like a new life to me. And what pleasure it will be to love and care for you and never to be parted till death comes. Jessie, I am so lonely and sad tonight. When I think of you so unhappy in Blaine Lake, it makes me feel so sad and disheartened. And Jessie, I have tried to get away so much this last week, but we're so busy with work, it is not possible to start on the Doukhobors yet. Those are those Russian nudists who don't like materialism. They burn stuff. I don't think I will get up before the 1st, dearest. I will try hard to get away before all that, but the responsibility of work is on my shoulders, and everyone seems to rely on me to help them. But the men are getting more experienced every day, and that makes it easier. He then goes on to arrange to meet Jessie in Prince Albert and take her on a 4-day holiday at her cousin's farm near Kinistino. So, a couple things here. He's saying he's in a tent. How come he's saying he's in a tent? Sorry? Yeah. So he actually is living in an apartment. We know he is in an apartment right now, him and Polly. But in his letter, he's telling Jessie, oh no, I'm in a tent.
A lie.
It's a lie. And the reason he's lying is because, well, you can't send a letter to a tent. You can send it to a house, and you can't send it to a tent. Um, so that's one of the reasons. And so how come what was the excuse he originally gave Jesse for how come he's leaving Blaine Lake? To go look for work. I want to find a good job so that I can pay for this marriage and make you happy. He has now found work and good work. Now what's his excuse? Sorry? Bad ear, sorry.
He's in a tent.
That's not his excuse. That's a way to get around the whole she can't reply back to him. Well, one of it is I'm so busy with work. But the other one is I want to make sure I'm strong again before I take you away. I wanted my lungs to heal up a little bit. So so like he's formulating like careful plans. Like there's lots of thought that goes into this. How come he's in a tent? Well, because now she can't send letters back to me. Now Paulie's not going to randomly get the letter while he's away at work. He's always stringing her along. Well, these are all the reasons I can't marry you just yet. It's biding him time to help him figure out the situation. So do we think that he's like is he kind of intelligent? Is he kind of like a mastermind as he does this? Or is he just getting really lucky? It's a little bit of both. At one point, you're going to have to actually argue whether you think that he's actually doing this quite intelligently or whether you think that like it just keeps blowing up in his face. The one thing I will say is, again, it's a letter. I recommend you guys do a sticky note. It will be helpful. Take a sticky note, plop it in. There's going to be lots of letters we're going to be looking at here. We're going to be carefully able to craft all these lies together. Oh.
It didn't reflect the page, so everybody's blocking.
Oh, might be able to like swap to a different book or something. And then just like set that one to the side. I'll see if I can get that fixed up. All right. So I'm just going to carry on. So he agreed to meet Jesse in Prince Albert. So he's in Regina right now. He's going to go to PA. That's like I don't know, like a 16, 15-hour drive, something like that. Like that's a lot. Maybe he takes the train. I'm not sure, but it would be better out at the farm where we could go for walks anywhere. I don't like Blaine Lake except for you. He's trying to like, oh, I don't want to be in Blaine Lake. He's setting down those breadcrumbs. And at Miss Dunlop's, we could have every minute to ourselves. And I don't think she would say a word if we sat up late. And Jesse, I'll try to make you happy and I will kiss you this time, whether you slap me or not. The boss is back now, Jesse. But he just got word from Ottawa this morning that our province, we have the smallest number of deserters who have not been arrested. And he is proud as peacock over it and says, Wilson, you are a wonder. We only have 299 deserters at large, 299 people who are being forced to go to the war, who chose to go into hiding and run away. Of course, there are hundreds more who have never reported at all, but it is hard work, dear. Some nights I am too tired to sleep. All day long, it is just a continual rush of telegrams and long-distance calls. Now, dearest, I'm going to stop and post your letter, then home, and then tent. Oh, Jesse, it is lonesome. I'm sitting here every night looking out the window all alone. You're looking out the window of your tent. On Sundays, it is just the same. Dearest, if love and kindness will make you happy when we are married, you will be the happiest wee girl in the world. You are my all, dearest, and I worship you and have been friends, sweetheart, and everything to me. I will do anything you ask me to help you repay your kindness. Good night, dearest. In Kinstow, we shall be together again. Your faithful, honest, and true Jack Boy. The tent was a stroke of genius. Not only did it reinforce his tragic, lonely image, oh, I'm so lonely, I'm living in a tent. Part of his appeal for Jesse, but a tent had no address for mail he didn't want Paulie to see. Remember, he is always away. He is working. He does work hard. He's going, he's also going back and forth to see them. He does not want a letter to get there for Paulie to read, because then the gig's up. Everyone knows what's happening. He doesn't want the sudden appearance of visitors from Blaine Lake. As Jack wrote love letters to Jesse, Paulie wrote letters home, wonderful, happy ones for the first few weeks. Even later, when she realized something was seriously wrong, her letters were still cheerful. She said nothing of her suspicions to her family. So after a few weeks, she starts to get suspicious. In the summer of 1918, Jesse moved to Prince Albert and went to work at the Holy Family Hospital, planning, it appears, to train as a nurse in the fall. Her mother had begun to disapprove of her attachment to Jack Wilson. In Prince Albert, Jessie could see Jack without worrying and upsetting her mother. An excerpt from Jack's letter to Jessie, July 12th, 1918. I have just found out that today that it is over 300 miles by road, so even at 20 miles an hour, it will take 15 hours steady. But just as soon as I reach Prince Albert, I will phone you from the new Windsor Hotel. I have a list of everything in the way of what I can think of that you like, and will do all my shopping just before leaving so that everything will be nice and fresh for you when I get up besides you. It is clear from the beginning of this letter that Jessie has been ill. But the gray dort will have to travel some again. I am so anxious to see you again. It has been very hot this week, Jessie. And I was just thinking that you would be uncomfortably hot in the hospital, and that would tire you out even more. So again, this is one of our few instances, very hot. We see this in an earlier chapter. We didn't talk about it, but it's referring to the fact that like it's a really tense and hot situation for him. Like it's hot because there's a lot going on that he needs to try and manage. It's again reference landscape and to like what's happened with the character. There's very few of these. That's one of them. I do hope you are happy in the hospital, dear. I cannot bear to think of your being unhappy. Jessie, my love for you seems to grow more and more all the time, and you are never from my thoughts, just always wondering if you are well and happy. I will write you on Sunday, dearest. Then I will come myself after that and be besides my wee world again. Now, dearest Jessie, good night. You're honest, clean, and true Jack boy. Polly, pregnant, suffering from the heat and living and lonely in a strange country, also needed Jack's understanding. And by the summer of 1918, Jack's letters and actions are those of a man completely besotted with another woman. So remember, earlier in the story, it mentioned how Jack claims that, no, I was trying to get away from Jessie at this time. These are those actions that are referred to that spoke differently. He's sending continuous love letters. He's planning to meet her. So his actions say otherwise. Around this time, Jack told Jessie that his brother Alex had been killed in action. Oh, another sibling dead. A short while later, he told Jessie that his remaining sister, poor Isa, had also mysteriously died, and thus ends all the siblings. He has no parents and no siblings, according to Jessie. While reinforcing his tragic family history, he had now cut himself off from his family. At this time, Jack presented Jessie with a gift of a car, a second-hand gray Dort. Pretty heady stuff for a young woman in those days. Not many women had a car of their own to drive. Not many even timidly drove their husband's car. Of course, the car would spark even more gossip, but Jack's remark that he would kiss her, even if she slapped him, showed the relationship was platonic. And again, he's able to now afford a second car. It is showing that he has some excess money here. In spite of his personal dilemma, or perhaps because of it, working long hours to avoid Polly's company, Wilson excelled in the military police and was offered the position of chief inspector. So he doesn't want to be at home with Polly. That's why he's working so long. With pride, he wrote to Jessie. This is on the August of 1918. My dearest Jessie, I have good news for you tonight, dearest. The boss is going to quit and I am asked to take his place. I don't know what to do. The pay is $200 per month. How much do the grunts who are dying in the war make? $1.10 a day. This man's making $200 a month. He's making like 8 times their salary. So he has a good job now. This pays. So when he was a police officer, he was making 60 cents a day. That's like $18. He is making over 10 times more than what he made as a RCMP officer or a Northwest Mounted Police officer. Yeah, he has a good job now. He has a good income. Dearest Jessie, won't you come to me now if mother is willing? It is one of the best jobs in the province, and your Jack boy would be Chief Inspector Wilson of the Dominion Police. And my wee girl would be right up in society. But what all the society her Jack boy wants is Jessie Patterson, the best wee friend he has in the world. This will delay me coming to Prince Albert now, dearest, until Tuesday or Wednesday, but I will be there in lots of time for the fair. I hope you are having a good time with the car, Jessie. I arranged with the garageman to give you the very best service, and anytime you want the car oiled or fixed in any way, just phone them and they will come for the car and do anything you want. I made everything all right with them. Now, dearest, remember what you promised me about the gasoline and everything. So please, your little girl, keep your promise. Jesse, I cannot live without you now. I just worship you. I think so, Jesse. I'm going to Blaine Lake on this trip to see mother. Then I'm coming for my wee girl to take her away from happiness. He's going to Blaine Lake to talk to Jesse's mother, who disapproves of their relationship. I'm coming for my wee girl to take her away to love and happiness. I may not be so jolly and good looking as other fellows, dearest, but your Jack boy will love and honor you and do all in his power to make you the happiest wee girl on earth. At my wages now, we will be able to afford everything that you have in mind for. Oh, Jesse, I don't think you know the depth of my love for you, and I tell myself to be so lucky in knowing that you love me in return. I will wire you just as soon as I know when I can get up next week beside my wee world again. You're loving and faithful, Jack boy. Jack couldn't resist trying to impress Jesse and fantasize in a bit how things might be if it were not for Polly. But he knew he and Jesse couldn't live together in Regina. Even if Polly went home to Scotland or conveniently died, several people knew about her. So he has one of the best jobs right now, but he realizes, I can't bring Jesse here.
Like you're loving and faithful, you're honest, and you switching.
Yeah. Yep. So there are a couple people who know about Polly's existence. One of them is Eileen Wismer, that person we talked about earlier, and the Wilsons and Lanes from Hungry Hollow, later named Ground Coulee. Thelma Wilson was an old school friend of Polly's who had also married a John Wilson. And her mother, Miss Lane, was an old friend of Polly's mother. They both had visited Polly at Miss Wismer's. And of course, there were the other roomers at the house. She had become quite close to Miss Hanson across the hall. Wilson gave 2 reasons for turning down the position. He turned down the position, this really wonderful, awesome position that would make all of his and Jesse's dreams come true, that paid like 10 times what he used to make. He turned it down. He gave 2 reasons for turning it down. One, he said he felt unqualified for the job and that he preferred a position that had opened up in Saskatoon. He requested a transfer and it was granted. In September, a new detachment would open in Saskatoon with Sub-Inspector John Wilson in charge. He wants to get away from Regina. He knows he can't bring Jesse there. As the summer wore on, Polly's pregnancy began to show, and in those days, it was not seemly for women to flaunt their condition. There was still something vaguely shameful about it, having everyone know what you've been up to. Pregnant women went out to walk mostly in the evenings on the arm of their solicitous and sheepishly proud husbands. Polly's husband was not solicitous, nor proud, nor there to offer his arm. He was just not there, and this glaring fact was embarrassing and hurtful. When he was there, he waited until dark to take her out walking, and then always to the park, never to any public place. He doesn't want people to know. She'd been alone for much of the last pregnancy and had thought this one would be so different. At least at home, she'd had the children and her family and work. This time she was alone in a strange country, and achingly lonely for her children and family and friends, and faced with an increasing obvious fact that her husband was no longer loved her, and that she would begin to suspect in love with another woman. Something was wrong. She knew it. So we see these suspicions. She's afraid that her husband is in love with another woman. But what should she do? Go home to birth another baby without a husband and the bitter prospect of raising 3 fatherless children? No. Jack tired of things easily. She would wait and see. So, I think my husband's cheated on me. Let's wait and see. One evening, Jack went out to meet some friends, leaving his tunic hanging in their room with a letter addressed in a woman's handwriting protruding from the pocket. Polly took out the letter and opened it. It began, "Dearest Jack." Polly fell into a chair, shakily spreading the letter open on her lap. Some words leapt out at her. "And Jack, I'm glad you are saving money for our wedding too. Since a girl only gets married once in her life, I'd like it to be nice, though not expensive. We are very busy at the hospital and the heat is terrible in the nurse's room. I'm glad you are coming again on Friday. Your Jessie misses you." And thus, the secret is revealed. Sorry? Polly finds out. So Polly finds a letter that Jesse had written to him. He left it in his coat, and he left his coat in the house. And so she found this letter. She discovers their plans for marriage. He is, in fact, in love with another woman. Now, what do you think Polly's going to do about this news? Maybe confront her husband. We'll see. When she has her suspicions, she decided she's going to wait and see. Polly clamped her hand over her mouth and the pages slithered to the floor. Marriage to her husband. What on earth was the girl talking about? She sat for some time, just staring into space. It was all too clear that Jack knew what she meant, but they were planning to marry, saving for a wedding. She shook her head as if she could shake loose those words that made no sense. Well, one thing was clear. She couldn't ignore it any longer. Polly went to the bathroom and pressed a cold face cloth against her burning cheeks and neck. And then she went to the closet and pulled out the only dress still large enough, combed her hair and got a fresh handkerchief from the drawer and went out.
Was like the description.
Of how they, she got her only dress still large enough. And it did describe the dress earlier when she was packing. I don't remember exactly what it looked like, but I'm gonna mark that. I'm gonna see if I can take a look at that later. That could be some potential foreshadowing. You know what? I'm just gonna see if I can scroll up a bit. Here we go. So Polly packed her suitcase, leather case, blah, 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 trunk, warm sweaters, extra skirts. It mentioned that she was sewing her like stuff. She was sewing stuff. It's mentioned there somewhere. I'll see if I can take a look at that later. But in an earlier chapter, she was sewing clothes for her journey.
The prologue.
And in the prologue, I think it mentioned something about the dress. Yeah, I think it was like she's gonna put on a dress. I think the prologue mentioned it was like a very like a fine quality like British wool or something. So she I'll take a look at that later, but she gets her dress, combs her hair, gets a French handkerchief, and went out. Miss Wismer and a neighbor were sitting on the cool veranda, their voices murmuring on the dusk. Moss fluttered at the screen, and the pink petunias overflowing the window boxes drenched the soft summer night with their spicy perfume. If you've ever driven down like the cathedral area in Regina, like just envision one of those old houses. That's what this is. A couple walked by on the street and the woman laughed. In the distance, a car horn honked. Everything seemed strangely vivid to Polly. Are you going to get a little air, Polly? It must be hot upstairs. Aye, it is a wee bit. Outside, she clicked the gate behind her and she set off for town. He would be at the station. That's where the policemen gathered to socialize. At the station, Wilson and his friend Conrad Reed and some of the other policemen were sitting at his usual table. Remember, oh, he's so lonely. He has no one here. He has friends. They were sitting at their usual table, trading yarns about rounding up army deserters. And the old lady was sitting behind the whole time in a long black skirt in a kind of corner. Just as I was leaving, I saw she had 3 feet. 3 feet? Go on. Yes, sticking out from under her skirt, and one of them was a big brown boot. No. God's oath, he was hiding under Mama's skirt the whole time. Heads turned as laughter erupted from the table. As Wilson threw his head back, laughing uproariously, he saw Polly standing behind Con across the table. He stopped abruptly, and the men looked up and saw Polly. Hello, Jack, she said. Wilson got up abruptly and walked her several tables away. He could feel the men's furious glances. Are you coming home soon, Jack? I need to talk to you. Keep in mind, she is visibly pregnant at this time. Are you coming home, Jack? Said a pregnant woman. I need to talk to you in front of his coworkers. Is that all? I thought something bad must have happened. As she was forming the words to say something bad had happened, she said, you had no business coming after me. I'll see you at home. And he turned back to the table. Polly could scarcely walk away. She felt so awkward and embarrassed with all their eyes on her. He hadn't even introduced her. He had not introduced them to his pregnant wife. Back at the house, the veranda was empty. In desperation, Polly sought out Eileen Wismer from the big warm kitchen where she was peeling apples for pies. The two had grown close with Polly over the months, with Polly talking to Eileen about her children, showing her their letters and pictures, and taking an interest in Eileen's family. Polly slumped into a chair, her face flushed and tear-stained. Polly, what's the matter? I've thought for a long time Jack has another girl, and now I know. Eileen dripped her hands from her apron and sat down across from her. You mean a lady friend? How do you know? I found a letter from her in Jack's pocket. She thinks he's saving up to marry her. Marry her? Good heavens, how could he think that? I don't know. Polly rocked from side to side in misery, hugging her arms. I don't know what to do. Should I go to Blaine Lake and tell this girl Jack is married? I should think so. The very idea. Or write or phone her. Doesn't she know he's married? She must not. He must not have told her. Polly fumbled for a handkerchief from her pocket and blew her nose. She was a bit calmer now. I followed him down to the station tonight. He was acting the fool, blethering away with a bunch of young fellows. Oh, I wondered where he went. Did he see you? Yes, I went right up to the table, and he tried to pretend I was somebody he hardly knew. He didn't even introduce me. I felt so humiliated, I cried all the way home. And as she relived it, tears spilled over again. Eileen took her hand and held it. Some poor little Polly, but she wasn't pleased. She wasn't surprised somehow. She always thought there was something underhanded about Jack Wilson, and he should be proud to introduce you. Did you tell those men who you were? No, I felt too embarrassed. I wish I had now. Eileen continued to hold Polly's hand in her big, warm ones. Polly did confront Jack about the letter, asking him how Jesse could think they were getting married. She sat on the bed while Jack stood by the door as if he couldn't wait to leave. I don't know how Jesse got that idea. I've been trying to break off with her, but I hated to hurt her. We only got attached because I was so ill and so lonely. Again, Jack, always the victim. Oh, I knew I should have come over sooner, Polly said. None of this would have happened. I blamed myself. And her husband was more than willing for her to just do that. I will tell her, Jack said. But you shouldn't have come after me like that. He hadn't moved from the door, and his face was pale and tight with anger. At her, she knew, for finding out how things stood. Polly lifted her flushed and tear-wet face to look at him. She twisted and pulled at the handkerchief in her hands. Tell me, Jack, I have to know. Do you love her? He looked back at her for a long time, his face expressionless. She didn't ask again. She didn't need to. So even in front of his wife, his pregnant wife, he can't say, no, I don't love her. Because he really loves Jesse, right? She dropped her eyes from his, and he went to shut out the door. She listened to his steps on the stairs, the front door open. Through the open window, she heard the creaking of the wicker rocker as he sat down on the veranda. Then she smelled the smoke of a cigarette. She got up and slowly began to undress. Eileen Wismer said later that Polly felt very bad at this time, staying in her room almost all the time. She found another letter from Jesse, which clearly showed that Jack had still not told her he was married. She showed the letter to Eileen and Miss Hanson across the hall, but she did nothing to advise Jesse of her existence. So as one searing hot day followed another, and the heat accumulated in that upstairs room on Rose Street, Polly Wilson waited and endured. So the gig's up. Polly knows about the situation. She knows her husband is in love and continues to be in love with another woman. Said he would break it off, still has not broke it off. And not only does Polly know, there are now other people who know about Polly and have an understanding that what's going on here. So chapter 15. Tell you what, why don't we take our break now? We'll come back at 10:55. We'll take our break now. We'll read chapter 15, and that will be it for today. All right, so chapter 15. Jesse. To Jesse, the idea of being married at age 19, so she is 18, 19, all the way throughout this. She was 16 when he met her. So she's been very young throughout all of this. It kind of explains a little bit more why she's a little naive here. The idea of being married at age 19 to a police inspector must have been exciting. To be told you could buy whatever you like, to have your own car to drive, to looked after by a garage man paid by your policeman friend. It was enough to turn the head of a much older woman. But she had proved when he was broke, unemployed, and ill that she didn't love him for what he could give her. And Jack knew this, constantly referring to how good she had been to him, what a true friend, and how he would do anything at all to repay her kindness. Again, she fell in love with him when he was poor and dying and had no prospects. It took courage to take up with a divorced man in rural Saskatchewan in 1918. Most people frowned on it. There was, however, one person whose approval mattered desperately to Jesse. So August 27th, 1918. Dearest Jack, your little girl is heartbroken today, for I had chills yesterday, and today I thought I was getting typhoid. And this morning I got a letter from mother saying she was sorry, but why couldn't I have married someone else and saved you the bother of doing what you had already done. Here, Jesse's referring to Jack getting a divorce, because as far as she's aware, there was divorce in the process. Also, her worrying about me. Mother said you wanted to be married in 3 or 4 months. Well, Jack, I thought you told her in September. Mother also said she told you would. She also said she told you would have to have the papers to show. And even though you cabled for them, they couldn't possibly be here by the end of the month, could they? I didn't know what to do, Jack. Sunday I felt so happy, and today I want to die. Why have we to be so unhappy when we might be happy? So she's starting to like notice that, well, you said you'd tell my mother that we were married a year ago, but you haven't. You said you'd have these divorce papers, but you don't yet. I told you something would happen, Jack, and now I think it has, all right. Mother said at the end of her letter for me to suit myself if I knew my own mind, but she didn't say she was pleased or hoped I was happy or anything. My heart is breaking, and I don't know what to do or tell them. I don't know if I'm going home Saturday or not. I don't feel like going home when Mother feels the way she feels. I am on my half day because I am not able to do any work. Jack, will you come do me a favor? Come to PA Saturday on the 7:15 train and stay over till Monday morning. Now, Jack, if you love me a little bit at all, come. Wire and let me know you will be here. Now, Jack, I'll tell you my idea. We could be married on Sunday, and you could take me to Kinstow for a week, Jack. As the doctor said, I ought to quit for a while till I get stronger. And if you wired for those papers, we could keep everything QT, quiet, till they come, except to tell Elsie, which is Miss Dunlop, which is Jesse's cousin, if you thought best. Now, Jack, dearest, I hope you don't think me awfully forward in asking you that, do you? Now, I shall wait for a wire Friday or Thursday saying if you will come. Now, goodbye, dearest. Write as soon as you get this and tell me if you still love your little nurse. Jesse, P.S. Write to Mother. Tell her all you intended to tell her the other day, as you likely won't be in DL, Blaine Lake, for some time. So what she's saying is, if you love me, you're going to come here this weekend. And you know what? Why don't we just get married? The lack of Jack's divorce papers made Mrs. Patterson suspicious. That and the fact that he told Jesse's father his wife was dead, even if he said it because he felt they disapproved of a divorced man, as Jesse believed, it was still a glaring lie. Jack now decided to resurrect the brother he killed off in the war. In a letter to Jesse on July 10th, he referred to a cable just received from Alex from Herrenheim, Holland. Just escaped from prison camp, 61 days in hiding, body smashed up, broke, cable money. Jack told Jesse that he immediately cabled his brother $500. These dramatic lies always put him in a good light. Also, Wilson's double life, because keep in mind, he has 2 wives, he's going back and forth, he has 2 cars, he has 2 places to live. Wilson's double life had stretched him financially, and the Alex story would help explain a shortfall. Throughout the summer, the marriage date changed with dizzying speed, and Jack unsure what to do about Polly, and Jesse reluctant to go through with it without the proof of Jack's divorce. A blizzard of letters passed between Jack and Jesse. July 20th, 1918. And dearest, you are not looking well. Cannot we get married now and let me care for you? August 2nd, 1918. Jesse, I cannot live without you. I worship you so. So Jesse, I'm going to Blaine Lake to see Mother, and then I'm coming for my wee girl to take her away to love and happiness. August 5th. Now, dearest, try and let me have 2 days together to arrange everything. I cannot bear to think of you working hard every day and me good and able to work for us both and make you ever so happy and comfortable. Jesse, I am just going to worship you after we are married, so you will know beforehand that you are not going to get any work. I have to make breakfast when we are home. You make dinner and we both make supper. I dry the dishes always. August 12th. Jesse, there were 3 days that we had. Sorry, these were 3 happy days that we had. There is no use in putting it off any longer than we can help. Dearest, I felt so downhearted when I waved my handkerchief to you on Sunday when I passed the hospital in the train. Remember, your Jack boy is loving you with all his heart and soul and thinking of the day coming soon when he can take you to a happy hand and lead you away to a happy life with your honest, clean, and true Jack boy. August 20th, now I have seen Mother, and she is all right and willing and glad that we get married. You're happy, Jack boy. P.S. Get your trunk ready, dearest. I'm coming for you now. This constant change of plans must have been driven Jesse to distraction, and in early September, she went home to Blaine Lake to recover from her illness. Jesse's unhappiness worried her parents, as did Wilson's conflicting stories. They were also beginning to realize that wherever Jack Wilson was, there was a bottle. of alcohol. Jesse said he drank because of the stress of his job, but still, he was not shaping up as the ideal son-in-law. So we see a letter on the 15th of September, 1918 from Jack. My dearest Jesse, I got the Regina at 6:30 a.m. this morning. I will get away from here on Wednesday night and be in Blaine Lake on Thursday night. This is the longest time we have been parted for a while, and so it is lonesome without my wee girl. So they've been parted for about a month now. Reed and a bunch of men are going to Saskatoon tonight to get everything ready for me. It is a terrible lot of work organizing this new arrangement, and of course, the bulk of the work has fallen on your humble Jack boy. But as soon as everything is going right in Saskatoon, I will have very little to do there, and the hours will be so short that I will be able to spend most of the time with you, dearest. Thursday forenoon, I'm going to Nutana, which is a residential area of Saskatoon, to see that wee cottage for us. So he's looking at a house in Saskatoon. Jesse, I do hope we can get married on the 1st of the month. So 1st of the month means October 1st. October 1st. He has put a date. That's when he wants to get married. Or on Sunday before the 1st. I will always try, dearest, and do everything I can to make you happy. I love you, Jesse, with all my heart and soul. You are getting a big lonely boy who has only one real friend in this world, and that is you. Dearest, I will try and pay you back for all the kindness you have shown me since I knew you. That is from the bottom of my heart, and I just feel so lonely tonight, and I would give anything just to have you in my arms right just now. I am thinking of you all the time. This forenoon, I kept thinking about the last Sunday forenoon when we were together in the car, but it always cheers me up again when I think that every day brings the time nearer when we shall always be together. Your faithful and lonely Jack boy. And so what you're going to see here in these next couple of pages are just going to be some real photos. These are real photos that of the areas of the characters we've been talking about. Again, this is a real story. Your cover page it's a real photo of John Wilson. Now this is a colorized one. It's originally in black and white, like they colored it, but that is him. So again, these are some pictures here of this is where Polly and John got married. This is the train station that they always talk about in Saskatoon. That's now a restaurant. What restaurant is that? Sorry?
No, it's a bar.
It might be a bar. It's a something. It was a couple of years ago as a restaurant. I'm not too sure anymore, but that building is still there. That is still there. Oh, you do? So this is Polly. These are her two children. So would it mention that Polly keeps a photo of her, like while she travels? This is that photo. So we have Polly, we have Georgie, and we have Ella. This is that police headquarters that he talks about. This is Blaine Lake. This is the stable that was purchased by the Pattersons. So that is where John had stored his horse. That's where he first met Jesse and the Pattersons. This is the photo from your cover right there. That's the photo. They just colorized it. That is taken in Blaine Lake. It's believed to have been taken by Jessie Patterson. We don't actually know what she looks like, but she was described in the books to be quite pretty. And then this is the house that we're talking about. This is on Rose Street, Regina. Again, like a lot of the houses in that cathedral area look like that. I think I've driven past that actually. This will come later. We got a burned out car. So we got a burned out Ford car. So when it talks about those gray Dorts, it's those old school cars you can think of. All right, so we're going to stop it there. We're going to stop it there with the reading. We will resume on chapter 16 tomorrow. But for now, let's do a really quick summary here of some of this stuff here. I'm just going to go straight to down here. Where is it? Where is it? All right, so before they met up in Saskatoon, they've met up in Saskatoon. That's where we left off. And now what's happening here is, okay, so you took the train from Regina to Saskatoon, and now guess what? We're going to do a 9-hour drive back to Regina. So we have Polly and Jack. They moved to Regina. They moved to Regina. and Polly gets pregnant. So now John, of course, needs a job, and so he's going to get a job. So John gets hired by the CMPC. And his job is like to basically like round up conscription deserters, right? People who are being told you are going to fight, you have no choice, and they just chose to run away. So his job is to round those people up. He excels at it. He's going to eventually get a promotion. But it's during this time. So now he's living the double life. Now we have a double life being lived. And he's trying to tie off some of these loose ends that are popping up here. He needs to deal with the Polly problem. And he needs to deal with people who know about this and know about her. So what does he tell Jesse? So Jack tells Jesse through the form of letters, like all through these fake letters. So when I say tells Jesse, I mean through his fake letters, that his family is all dead. His mom and dad are dead in real life, but all of his siblings are alive. But he leads Jesse to believe that his family is all dead. And what we eventually get here is that Polly discovers one of these letters. So Polly discovers the truth about Jesse. So now he has to do some damage control. And Jesse, of course, is starting to wonder. So Jesse plus her mom. So Jesse plus mom. Want divorce papers. He promised her a long time ago that I do have a wife, but she's an awful, vile woman, and I've been trying to get divorced for a while now, and it's almost done. So they're like, okay, where's the divorce papers? Where's the divorce papers? So Jesse and mom want these divorce papers. Jesse and mom want these divorce papers, and ultimately, what he does here to kind of like serve as a distraction is he resurrects his quote unquote dead brother. Right? He was in a military camp. He was a prisoner. So distractions here. He's going to resurrect his dead brother. He's going to buy Jesse a car. And all in the meantime, Polly is going to confront Jack. And so he's made his choice. What the person he really wants to be with is Jesse. He wants Jesse. He loves Jesse. Polly's a problem. So he's trying to build his life to be with Jesse. He knows he can't take this awesome job in Regina. Like that is a good job when he's offered that chief inspector of it. So he declines a promotion. He transfers to Saskatoon because people know about Polly and Regina, right? There are people who came from Scotland who knew her parents who lived in Regina. We have Eileen, that person who lives with them or lives around them that knows about her. So he transfers to Saskatoon and plans to be married with Jesse. So he finally puts a date on it. Jesse will be married by the start of next month, which technically, if we're looking at the dates of the letter, is October 1st. So by October, we will be married. And the final thing is we start to see Jack has a bottle everywhere, which is kind of referring to the fact that he's developing a bit of an alcohol problem. Here, I'll make this a little bit bigger. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm blocking some views here. So if you finish that up here, so there are a couple things here. Now we're not going to end up doing this research assignment, but we have a bit of time here, so you can use that time, try and work on some of this stuff here. I will upload like an answer key to this, so like if you're not too sure, that's fine, but try and work on some of these questions in chapter 8 to 10, the ones in chapter 11 to 13, and the ones in chapter 14 and 15. There are just some questions. We will be referring back to it. Reminder, the last the laundry basket is due tomorrow, and your choice of a short story is due on Monday as well, so you got some time to work on stuff. Yes.
The one with the short story.